We're doing our first maple sap boil off to syrup. These are the two evaporators that we made. Made one about 4 years ago. Found out that we were collecting so much sap and it was taking too much time that I built one back to back with it. To explain here, we have 3 pans 6-inch deep, and the first one, this is essentially like a big rocket stove if you're familiar with that. It draws the air in here. We have a nice fire going in there, and it draws it up through the chimney. The one closest to the chimney has the most heat, and this one will be constantly boiling. And what we do is, the second one will also boil a lot of the time. But what happens is that we take from this one, since it's still boiling, because you never want to kill the boil. That's how you end up taking a lot of time out. And then we'll transfer this one, which is kind of just like a pre-warmer, and then we'll put it in here. And then we come over to, our collection buckets, and you can see there's still some ice in here, and we'll put it in here, because if you were to dump this right into your boiling pan, it would just kill the boil, and it would take an enormous amount of energy and wood and heat to get that to boil again. So we just kind of monitor it through the day, just transferring into each one. Keep the fire stocked, and you keep that burning real good.
All right, so the wind is cooperating right now. You can see the color difference in the pans. So this is the start. This first pan is the start. And then we have our middle boil pan, and then the final boil pan. And you can see it's much darker than the first.
Okay, so these evaporators we built are just made out of cinder blocks. Just standard you can get anywhere. We filled them with dirt for insulating power, because the first one I built, like every one of these blocks cracked. You could line them with fire brick or something, which I plan on doing eventually. We leave an opening over here if you want to look, and all the air is drawn in here across the bottoms of the pans, and it comes right up this chimney. You got to have the chimney, at least this high. You could also do it with cinder blocks, but either individuals or just through one channel. And then but they started breaking up bad. These even crack up, but they still stand for the entire boil. But I mean, the amount of heat that comes out of here, you couldn't even put your hand above it, and it burns so clean you can't even see smoke from there. Everything you see here is just steam.
Yeah, so I think we started around 7:15, and it's about 12:30 now. We've done approximately 65 gallons. So it's moving along. You can really start to see some of the color changes here. Like here's the fresh stuff that goes in. And then the middle pan and the last boil pan. It's getting pretty dark. Getting closer. All right, so here's the sap in the buckets. You can see it's kind of like looks like water. It's kind of blue. And then I have another bucket I'd like to show you of when it turns yellow, and you don't really want to process the yellow sap. That means it's got bacteria growing in it, or it's just the warm weather that we get here every once in a while has caused it to yellow. Here is the sap that's turned yellow. Doesn't look blue like the other ones, or clear. You don't want to use this when you're making your syrup. This might have some off flavors or other bacteria and stuff in it, so it's just best to dump this type of stuff. you're good whenever.
All right. As we get near the end here, it becomes a little more difficult to try to control this, because as the water boils off, I don't know if you can see this, but these the bubbles, it's different than a boil, right? You have to sometimes shut off the air supply down here to stop it, because the fire is slow to react to changes. And after all of your hard work of boiling the sap off, boiling the water out of the sap to syrup, by the time you get to this point, you know, there's a 40-to-1 ratio. You start getting this boiling over, you're going to lose a good portion of the work that you put into it. Now at the end here, we're on our last 5-gallon bucket. This is going to be 95 gallons by the time this is emptied. We've only got about 2 gallons left in here. Once that's in, you're going to slowly keep emptying from your farthest one in. And when you do that, you have to replace that with water, because otherwise you're going to burn your pans out and they'll be useless. And you can't just remove the pan, because then that changes the whole flow of the heat source. So these have to be removed and then filled with water so that it can just boil off and protect the pan and the proper airflow and heat source. So we're getting near the end here. I don't know exactly what time it is, but we've probably been here about 7 hours or so. We're 95 gallons in, and we'll probably finish off in the next hour and a half or so.
We have started the consolidation of the syrup. Brian is emptying the farthest container and then refilling it with water. We will do this until we are down to 1 pan. Adding water to the pan helps protect the pan from being burned out. It also allows the pan to stay in place. Removing the pan would allow too much heat to escape from the evaporator. Once we feel that we have boiled the majority of the water out of the sap, we will then strain the syrup using a filter. The syrup will then go through a final boil to reach a specific sugar content and further filtering.
So now we're getting to the end here. We've got 95 gallons boiled down to these 6 small containers, or 6-inch deep. We've got about 1.5 inches in each one. So we're really getting down there. Now, in order to keep the heat properly flowing, when one of these gets emptied, we're going to have to dump it in and replace it with water. Otherwise, the heat would be escaping from like the opening here. And then we consolidate down to 2 here. We'll consolidate down to 2 there. Eventually get it down to 1 in each. And the 95 gallons should probably turn into about 2.5 gallons of syrup. So that's what we're hoping for. And then towards the end here, it gets a little more difficult to manage your temperature, because now what you've got is especially in this closer one, because we've been moving everything from, you can see the lighter color into the darker color. So everything's been getting down here. This is a higher sugar concentration. So the pan is so hot. As soon as it starts boiling up the sides, everything foams up. And then with a wood fire like this, where you don't have controls, it's hard to regulate the temperature. A fire of this size and these apparatuses are slow to react to, when you shut off the air supply by blocking it that way, or try to move some stuff around. So you got to keep managing. Sometimes when this starts boiling over, you have to put some in there, or you take some colder stuff and put it in there to cool it down. But the main thing is like all these surface areas, they're all boiling off, and so we're getting triple the evaporation, than just a single one boiling while you got the other ones just warming. All right, now we got, like I was just talking about, we got to swap this out for a water pan and get the rest of this into um, the finishing pans. So you kind of real quickly grab it up out of there. And then this is just regular water, just to, so you don't destroy your pan, but you keep the flow of that rocket stove to keep the heat going towards your syrup there. Because now we can start calling it syrup. It's so close. We don't even have to call it sap anymore. And then we'll get ready to do this one very soon. We're way low on this. In fact, we probably should do it about now. So let's scoop up the rest and get it before everything boils over. Yeah, it might not look like a lot, but it's best to get as much out as you can, because you know, you put a lot of time and effort into this, and you don't even want to lose any of this. And it does get a little awkward trying to carry these things, especially if they have a lot of liquid in them. Now you keep the flames away from this one, so you don't have to keep replacing the water. We shouldn't have to add any more to that. So we'll keep the flames pushed farther in there and just work those last two trays closer to the chimney. Okay. Now we're going to filter out the last of what we have, just to remove any particles or ash that could have come from the chimney. This isn't the substitute for the final filtering. We still have to boil down a little bit more. Probably take another gallon or gallon and a half off of this, and then filter it out with one of these pre-filters, and then the Orlon filter that takes all of the sugar sands out of it. We're also going to be building a vacuum filter, so that we don't have to do the gravity feed like this one is doing right now. It's taken a long time to drain through. Our finished product for tonight, we took 95 gallons and we're down to about just over 3 gallons. We expect to take it down to about a little under 2.5. So that'll be an easier boil on the stove, way more controllable. Then we can test it with our hydrometer and have a thermometer, and Then we'll do our vacuum filter and our bottling. Sterilize the bottles and bottle it.